Hey everyone. Hope everyone's doing well, staying home. You're not getting too stir crazy, but uh, today we're just going to talk a little bit about argumentative writing. I know you guys are all working on your Macbeth response pieces, and we went over these things, and it's on the assignment, but I just thought it would be a good opportunity just to kind of look at it one more time, just look at the really important things that you should be focusing on in your paper. Um, it's very similar, like we talked about, to analytical writing, but persuasive writing has a few different components than an analytical piece would have. You're still going to have the same structure in terms of a pretty formal voice. You need to stay in third person. You'll stay present tense, but your language can be a little bit stronger. You can have a little bit more of a bias in a persuasive, argumentative piece. So I think overall, is just this opportunity to take a real stance on something. Pick something that you're really interested in and take a really strong stance. So there should be no going back and forth between ideas. You should avoid words like maybe and sometimes it's seen. Your language needs to be a lot stronger than that. It's like very definitive. Whatever the point you're making is, you need to make it in a really strong manner. But avoid absolutes. A few of you, when I was looking over your outlines, had a claim, someone like all people with power abuse it. And that's not really true. When you think about, I think about an argumentative piece as being like lawyer. And that's something that the opposing attorney could poke a lot of holes in. That's just not a true statement, right? But it still has to be a really strong statement. You don't want to make it super weak. So I think what that statement doesn't do is give a lot of information. It's really vague, right? So if you make it a little bit more pointed, I think your statement is going to be much stronger. So instead, you could say something like, when people get power thrown upon them that they're not ready for, the dynamics will be problematic for many. That's true. I mean, that is a true statement. And that would be a lot harder for someone on the other side to poke holes in, right? So you need to look at it and you want to be strong, but you have to be really careful about your diction. It's your opportunity to really build a case. So whatever it is that you want to argue, whatever the topic is that you're interested in, you have to really think about it from a topical standpoint more than a plot standpoint. Of course, you're going to use the elements of plot to emphasize what you're talking about, but be really careful that you're not just retelling the story. This is not a book report, right? It's an argumentative piece on a topic in a piece. So you kind of have to think of it that way. For our purposes, again, we're writing it on a literary piece. So it's a little bit different than a lot of arguments where you're looking at just a topic, whether it be, racism or gender in the workplace. It's a different type of topic because we're not doing research on multiple sources. We're just using Macbeth. So it's really important. Again, you are going to use very specific ideas from the book, but you have to be really careful about bringing in all of these ancillary characters that really don't make sense in the piece. And again, the piece is really short, so it has to be hyper focused. So as you're writing and as you're drafting, again, my suggestion always is just to draft, put it all down there, and then you kind of have to go back and look at it again and say, is this necessary? Do I need to bring this person in? Is it any additive value to what I am saying? If it is, then you need to keep them in and you need to give a little context. Again, be really careful that you don't just start putting people into your piece. And then Banquo did this, and then Fleance came in, and then Macduff came into the room, and you're just like, what are you talking about? It just, again, it is too short of a piece to bring in a lot of characters. So be careful with that. So in terms of the order of your piece, you're going to start your very first sentence of your piece is going to be your theme or your claim. And we don't normally do that because this isn't a full-fledged essay, right? We're not going to have a full introduction, supporting paragraphs, a conclusion. We're kind of going, the claim, we always say, goes at the end of the introduction, but it doesn't have to go at the end of your introduction necessarily. So we're going to start with it up front. We're going to put our claim or our topic sentence right up front. Then we're going to give maybe another sentence. You don't really need to. You're introduce that it is Macbeth that we're talking about. You're going to give some context, and you're going to give your textual evidence and some analysis. That's probably going to be your first paragraph. You're setting up your argument. Then you're going to go right into your counter argument. That should be your first sentence. Then you're going to talk about it. And it's very, very important to transition throughout this piece. You can't just have like argument, counter argument, refugee. You have to really make sure that everything makes sense. So that's the problem with shorter pieces, is to really look at how everything is integrating together, and then it makes a lot of sense. I will put this whole PowerPoint up on Schoology for you, but again, just be careful with your citations. Your first one will have Macbeth, act, scene, line, and then the next two are just going to have act, scene, line. So it's just numbers, period, numbers, and then your punctuation always goes outside of your citation. Again, your counter argument, there's always another side to an argument. Always, 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 right? There's two sides to every story. But for our purposes, again, you're hoping that your counter is pretty weak. It doesn't have to be a super strong counter. You want the counter to be somewhat weak so you can show that your argument is the stronger point. And that's what the counter is used for, to really set up this idea that your argument is the more valid idea. But you're still going to present it. You're going to find a piece of text that works. It does work, but it's going to be more of an isolated case. It's not going to be something that's really seen a lot in the play. And that's the harder part with the counter, is really thinking that through. And then the refutation is bringing you back to your original argument. So again, though unsolicited power can be handled by some, the mass majority deals with it poorly, as they do not have the experience needed to be efficient. So then you're going to go back into this idea that people that have power thrust upon them, it's really hard for them to deal with it. You're going to give a really good piece of text to end your response, to show that your original argument was the best. And then you're just going to have a couple sentences to close it out, a little bit of a reflection at the end, so nothing major. So for this piece, it's pretty formula, it has a real big formula, right? So you just need to think argument, counter argument, refutation, transition well throughout, and stay super focused, all right? This is the formula for a really effective argument. If you have any other questions while you're drafting, by all means, I'm available all week, but hopefully this was just a little bit helpful in getting you to think how to set everything up. All right.